Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I are back with my weekend reading report, where I talk about all the stuff I read last week. Read a couple things last week, so yeah, let's talk about it. The first thing is that I finally finished Wolf Hall. I finished Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. This was Steve Donahue's choice for his book club, his Steve Tiberius Donahue book club over at his channel for this month. So, yeah, I finally read Wolf Hall. I've been intending to read this literally forever, almost. Everybody, it seems like, has read this except me. So, finally read Wolf Hall, and I really enjoyed it. Glad I have the next two books in the series, because this is, despite some of its stylistic oddities, compulsively readable. I really enjoyed this. If it hadn't been so busy this past week, I would have, spent more time reading this. But this past week there was a big storm because Roger keeps using the Necronomicon to create weather havoc because he's upset about the 500 book challenge still. So, he's trying to destroy the world. But, if it wasn't for that, I would have had more time to read, and I would have read this a lot quicker than I did. But as it was, I enjoyed it every time I picked it up, which was for like 20 minutes every day or something like that. Really entertaining book about Cromwell, Thomas Cromwell, who in reality was Henry VIII's henchman, who helped Henry VIII do all his dirty work, but in this story is kind of a good guy. And that is one of the criticisms leveled at this book that I've seen. But, it's fiction, of course, and Hilary Mantel seems to have stuck closely enough to the actual historical events so that nothing was really distracting or jarring. And so I could accept, for the novel's sake, good guy Cromwell. Why not? It's going to be interesting to see how she pulls that off in future books, though, because, some of the stuff that went on. Already, Thomas Cromwell, he does a lot of rationalizing as far as the choices that he makes in serving Henry VIII. But really, nobody seemed to have been very heroic who hung around Henry VIII. They all seemed kind of shady, so, at the very least. So, maybe she felt she needed to make Cromwell a good guy, or at least relatable. And I think it works in the context of the story, in the context of the novel. It works. So I enjoyed it tremendously, and I look forward to getting to the next one, Bring Up the Bodies. Don't think I'm going to get to it next month, but maybe the month after. What is next month? Well, we'll see. But I'm hoping to get to both of the next two books in the trilogy this year. I'm hoping, if I don't get bogged down in other nonsense, which is possible. Now, I am also... Okay, I forgot to mention a book when I made this video. I don't know how, but I somehow managed to forget to mention that I read Frog and Toad Together by Arnold Lobel. I blocked it out probably because it just was such a terrible disappointment. I was expecting this to be completely horrifying and terrifying and everything else that you would, expect from a Lovecraftian horror novel. But this collection, actually it's a collection of short stories, and not a single one of them are at all frightening. So, I actually made a video about this and everything. So that's probably why I forgot to mention it. But it does count, actually. I am counting this in the 500 book challenge because, it's tiny, but, it's a book. So there, I forgot to mention this one. Doing the Edgar Rice Burroughs deep dive, where I read all of Edgar Rice Burroughs' books, more or less in the order that he composed them. Sometimes that's a little tricky, so there are exceptions, but mostly. And the next one on the list was The Girl from Ferriss's. And this was a definite change of pace for Edgar Rice Burroughs, who is the great author of Tarzan of the Apes, and John Carter of Mars, and Pellucidar, and all that other exciting fantasy, adventure, science fiction stuff. Now, this, written for All Story Magazine, where he wrote a lot of his earlier stuff, was published there. The Girl from Ferriss's, this is a relation, well, it's a society kind of drama where Edgar Rice Burroughs tells a melodramatic tale about some of the issues and problems found in the society of his day. It hasn't aged particularly well, but at the same time, it's not terrible. The first half is something Edgar Rice Burroughs should never ever be, and that is boring. The first half of this is just pretty dull. Fortunately, it's pretty thin. The second half things pick up. Things become more interesting. They also become sort of unbelievable. Now, everything that happens in this particular story could conceivably happen in the real world at this time. Yet, some of the shenanigans that go on, I find more unbelievable, or at least I found them more unbelievable while I was reading them, than, say, a typical Barsoomian adventure on Mars. This was, yeah. I see why Edgar Rice Burroughs did not continue in this vein after this story. I don't know what the reader reaction at the time was for this, but I suspect it was, where's Tarzan? You spent your time writing this when you could have written another Tarzan book? What? Which was kind of my feeling reading this. But like I said, it's not terrible. It's just not particularly good. It is very melodramatic and over the top. And it actually gets more and more that way as the story goes on, which I actually appreciated because it did add to the interest of the story. So, yeah, The Girl from Ferriss's, the next book I'm going to be reading in the Edgar Rice Burroughs Deep Dive. For some reason, I forgot to bring in here, but it will be Thuvia, Maid of Mars, which is one of the Barsoom series, the Martian series. So I'm really looking forward to that one, featuring John Carter's son, Carthoris. So that'll be fun. So yeah, I finished this. And that was book, I can't remember what book it was in my 500 book challenge. So I will put the number right here. Do you remember? Roger's not telling me because, he's against the whole 500 book challenge, the challenge where I read 500 books I already own before I buy any new ones. Roger says it'll take forever and that I'll look like Roger when it's all complete. And that's probably true. I kind of already look like Roger. You might be better looking than me, actually, Roger. If I put my glasses on Roger and a tie, you'd never know the difference. Anyway, I also read, I'm also doing another project, the Superman Challenge, where I have challenged myself to read Superman comics every day of my life. I'll read a Superman story every day, or two, depending how long they are. I'm reading about 22 to 30 pages of Superman a day or something. But every day I read Superman. And recently I've been reading stories from this book, World's Finest, the Silver Age World's Finest, Volume 1, with Batman and Superman from the Silver Age, and it's fantastic. It's awesome. This book is awesome. I'm having a great time with it. I love Superman stories from the Silver Age, and in, what was it, 1952, Batman and Superman have their first adventure together, where they share the same adventure that happened in a Superman comic book. But both characters appeared every month in World's Finest comics. So I think it was 1954. Let me check the date when they first appeared together in World's Finest comics in one adventure. Yeah, it was 54. And there's the cover for that, for the 1954 story. And the stories are written by some of them are written by Edmund Hamilton, famous science fiction pulp writer Edmund Hamilton. He writes a lot of these stories. We also have Alvin Schwartz writing some of the stories, but a lot of the stories are written by, and some are written by Bill Finger. So yeah, some fun stories in here, and the artwork in the earlier parts of the book are early Kurt Swan Superman stories. So Kurt Swan was one of the greatest Superman artists, and he does a great job with both Batman and Superman. He's able to give them both their distinctive looks. Batman had a very distinctive look at the time with the big square jaw, and Superman had his own look at the time as well. And he gets them both just right. And the artwork is just really, really good throughout. And then you have artwork following that by Dick Sprang. And Dick Sprang was another really, really good artist. And yeah, so this book is dynamite so far. I'm really enjoying this. The Superman challenge has been a hell of a lot of fun, I have to say. So yeah, I've been reading this. That's been a good time. Now there's still, at the time of filming this, a few days left of the month, and I've got Roger's Cheap Old Book Club coming up for April. I'm like, when? April is coming up, and the April pick is Robert Louis Stevenson's new Arabian Nights, which is a book not too many people read anymore. But I've got a few days before the beginning of the month, and I didn't want to skip ahead and just start reading that book now early, so I have time to read another book. So I picked this up. This is Echoes of Valor, and I'm reading this one. This was edited by Carl Edward Wagner back in 1991, I believe this one came out. This was a series. Yeah, this was from 91. This is a series of books that he edited. I think there were only 3 volumes that Carl Edward Wagner edited that have kind of heroic adventures and pulpy stories from the pulp magazines in the 1930s. And it has some 20s and 30s. There's some great stuff in here. This particular volume has an opening story, The Shadow of the Vulture by Robert E. Howard. And every time I pick up Robert E. Howard after I haven't read him for a while, even I am just like, damn, this guy can write. He is so much better than he's given credit for as far as how good of a writer he was. And I know, of course, I'm going to say that. I love Robert E. Howard, but so good. The Shadow of the Vulture is such a great story. Then we've got Henry Kootner with Cursed Be the City and the Citadel of Darkness. I don't know that those stories have been reprinted very often, but they are reprinted in this book. Manly Wade Wellman is in here with Hawk Goes to Atlantis. Then Jack Williamson's stories Wolves in Darkness is in here. You can get that pretty easily as an ebook now, but at the time when this was printed, you couldn't find that anywhere. Then the mysterious master of fantasy, Nixon Dallas. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, the poor fella. He was a mysterious fantasy writer who wrote a few stories in weird tales that were really, really interesting. This one has the Red Witch, the Sapphire Goddess, and the Sea Witch. And it also has Sam Moskowitz's article on Nixon Dallas, Mysterious Master of Fantasy. So this is a dynamite volume, and it's been, ever since I stumbled across it here at the Manor, I've been wanting to read it. And after reading Wolf Hall and The Girl from Ferriss's, this seemed like, yeah, I need some extra heroic fantasy fun, so I picked this up. And I'm having a good time with it. I used to, at one time, also have Volume 1 and 2, but I can't find them anywhere in the Manor, so I don't know if I still have those. I probably gave them away or something stupid. Maybe they lurk somewhere in these dark halls. I don't know. Maybe I'll stumble across them, but I'm not counting on it. But at least I have this one, and this one is an awful lot of fun. I'm really enjoying that. And then, yes, then it's on to the new Arabian Nights, part of Roger's Cheap Old Book Club. Roger picked all the books for the book club, including this very, very old copy of New Arabian Nights. This is from 1909. And this is readily available on Project Gutenberg, as all of Roger's Cheap Old Book Club picks are. So you can get this book for free and read along with the rest of us next month. You can, I've got a dopey Discord page where everybody talks about the books that we read in the book club. So yeah, this is going to be fun. This is not a book anybody reads anymore, like I said. Probably because there are a few different complete short fiction volumes, big fat ones out there that all of these stories are available in. But, it's fun to go back to this original volume. Or it will be fun, I think. Yeah, so that's everything. That's everything, right, Roger? Yeah, I'm not forgetting anything, I don't think. Probably not. Anyway, that's everything for this week. Catch me next week. Maybe I'll read something else. Who knows? You never know. I have no idea what videos I'm going to be doing this week other than Epic Comic Book Wednesday. I know what I'm doing for that. I feel like I did know what I was going to do tomorrow, but now I can't remember what it was. Yeah, that's about right. Hopefully I'll remember by tomorrow. Hopefully. Okay, guys, I will catch you next time.